Welcome, welcome, everybody. It's Friday, new episode of Satoshi Secrets. And as you can see, today I'm not alone anymore. I'm finally joined again by Jonathan. Jonathan, welcome back to the show. And I think it couldn't be a better time that you joined again than today, actually. You are muted, man. You are still muted. You are still muted. You are muted. I think he cannot hear us. I'm going to.
Oh, hello.
No, there
I'm
he is.
muted.
You are
Wonderful.
muted.
Wonderful. Yeah, so we're live on both channels today. We're on my channel
Cool.
and your channel as well. Very exciting about what's happening in the markets right now. I mean, obviously we got Bitcoin breaking into new all-time highs. Amazing. I mean, it's just I kind of I kind of thought that this is what's going to happen if Trump gets elected, but
Yeah.
you never know, you never know.
Yeah, I always thought if we see Trump really winning, it's going to be a little bit the effect of what we saw in January when the spot ETFs got green lighted by the SEC. We all also, before that, we had like this, the markets being bought up. And when the news finally was released, we had the markets dumping at first. I mean, not on a midterm then, but was kind of like a buy the rumor, sell the fact kind of thing. But yeah, seems to be different. And of course, today we will need to talk a lot about Bitcoin. And when we talk about Bitcoin, obviously that includes also most of the altcoins out there. So what you are seeing right now in Bitcoin, you are seeing especially also in altcoin. I mean, Ethereum pumped even harder, I think, than Bitcoin did. But yeah, let's have a look first maybe here at the new reality of what we saw. And it was a long night. I think I stayed away until 4 a.m. or something. And then I finally got some sleep because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Because it's pretty special, not only for the world of crypto or finance in general, I think, because what we've seen here, if nothing out of the ordinary happens anymore, and I think it cannot, is really a bit of a landslide win that Trump had. Not only the electoral votes with 295, and I think still two races undecided, Arizona and Nevada, but he's in front there. But the majority in the US Senate and the US House is also in the hands of Republicans. And that basically means for the next 4 years, I think. Is it going to be 4 years?
Yeah. 4 years.
Yeah, we are going to see a one party ruling them all. They basically have the power to decide. Well, I'm not going to say what they want. Yeah, but basically they can decide what they want. And the Democrats will have a very hard time overturning what the Republicans are going to decide in the next 4 years. So let's see how this is going to end. Interesting side fact, by the way, I never have been the greatest supporter of Donald Trump, I must say. I don't know, I couldn't take him seriously, honestly speaking. But yesterday I watched this podcast of what's his name, Joe Rogan, I think, or Seth Rogan, Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan,
yeah, he's like like the super amazingly popular podcaster over in the States, and he interviewed Donald Trump before the election, which is a non-scripted 3-hour live podcast that was, and I watched I think like 45 minutes of it yesterday evening, and I was actually surprised, I must say, how well-spoken Donald Trump can be. And he's a really good speaker without any airs, any ers. Of course, he has his narcissistic tendencies, but in a way, he also was self-reflecting. And when I thought to myself, maybe this podcast might have been what tipped the scales in his favor with certain voters.
I really do think that Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan interview had a big effect on this election. But I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because I'm someone who definitely supports Donald Trump more than what I did with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And of course, we're not even Americans, so we don't really have a say in the official elections. But when I think, when I saw it's interesting, because I heard a lot of other people say that they saw the Joe Rogan interview and they're like, well, he doesn't seem like what the media that
Exactly.
I see has portrayed him to be. And the same thing happened with Jared Kushner, who worked in the Trump administration before. Like, he got a lot of hate on media, and then I saw an interview on Joe Rogan. I'm like, oh, this guy is actually really smart and really well spoken. Now, I did see the Joe Rogan interview with Trump, and I thought it was quite boring, very boring. But then you know, I think one of the biggest reason why Trump won was because they looked at Kamala and they said, this is probably in terms of in terms of personality and in terms of being able, being well spoken and how to handle interviews, they might think like this might actually be worse than Donald
Yeah.
Trump. Because I saw a lot of interviews with her, and she didn't really, stand out as someone who's,
She's She's
have
not like Barack Obama, like when I was thinking
exactly.
about Barack Obama yesterday evening, I talked to my wife. I said, like, if I would meet Barack Obama, he's like the type of guy who I definitely would be like to be friends with or have him on my good side, because he
Definitely.
he still is so charismatic, and
Yeah.
Kamala Harris just isn't that. I don't say like she's a bad politician or something, but she just doesn't have the charisma as it seems to be competing with somebody like Trump.
Yeah, exactly. I think the it's weird though, because I look at Donald Trump and he, his speeches and the way he talks, it's just it's a bit weird, but it's crazy that we have the 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 most powerful country in the world, the biggest economy. We get to choose between two people where it's like it seems, I mean, it's just insane. I do have to like what you said with Obama. I think Obama had a really great way of speaking to an audience and really good at speaking. But I want to show you guys, because I have this idea I've been working on. So if you don't mind, I want
please
to
go ahead.
just
Please go ahead.
start with the analysis right away, because I want to.
Yeah, that would have been the next one. Naturally, we jump in. So take it away.
Yeah.
Here you go.
So I want to talk about. So what I'm going to talk about now is a short idea on Euro USD. This is same risk as I usually do. So it's just a normal trade, but it's a long-term swing trade, and it's a short on Euro USD. And the idea is based on a correlation between the dollar currency index and the S&P 500 that occurred when Donald Trump got elected last time in 2016, or well, I guess he entered office in 2017, but the results came in 2016, just like now, when Trump will enter office probably in January or something next year. I'm not sure exactly
I think
when.
inauguration is always in January. I think end of January or something.
So I want to show you a couple of charts here that I have on. First, I want to show you the correlation that I talked about between the dollar currency index and the S&P 500. So what we have right here is blue is the dollar currency index, and then red, or whatever, pink, red. Let's just say red. I'm probably colorblind, but
somewhere in between. Yeah.
Somewhere in between, yeah. So that's the S&P 500, and that's the dollar currency index. And here is the election in 2016, when it became clear that Trump was winning. Maybe that was, so this is on the daily chart. So around this time was when he won. And then, of course, here is when he entered office, around this time. So you see that in the beginning, there's a very clear correlation a positive correlation between the dollar currency index and the S&P 500, which is not very normal, because the dollar currency index going up basically means there's strength in the dollar, and the S&P 500 going up means that there's, the risk sentiment is positive. People want to get into risk assets. Now, the way risk on and risk off usually works is when you're in a risky environment where investors do not want to be adding more risk, they go into safe haven assets like the dollar. Okay, because the dollar is the strongest, one of the strongest currencies, and people go into the dollar because they feel safer with the dollar when it's a risky environment. And then when when it's time to buy risky assets, when it's time to put on more risk, they usually go into risk on assets like equities and Bitcoin and things like that. And the S&P 500 is obviously one of the best measures, in my opinion, of looking at the current risk sentiment. And so usually what you see is when the S&P 500 goes up, the dollar currency index is going down, and the correlation breaks. The top of the dollar currency index is about 60 to 70 days after the election results. So about 2 months after, which you could say that from the result to the inauguration, you have a correlation.
Yeah.
And of course, when the dollar currency index goes up, that means usually that Euro USD goes down, because most of the dollar currency index is compared to the euro. So it's a basket of currencies where I believe more than maybe even 60% is.
I think like 57% or something is the euro. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically, most of the time when you're looking at the dollar currency index, it's almost like an inverse chart of Euro USD. So if the dollar currency index is going to go up, I'm betting on Euro USD downside. And then you might ask, well, why do you want to short Euro USD if risk remains positive? Because usually in a risk on environment, Euro USD goes up. If Bitcoin goes up, a lot of times you see Euro USD goes up. Well, that is not true for 2016. So if we look at this correlation this time around, we can see that we are seeing signs that something similar is happening right now. And I do think that, so here you see the dollar currency index in red, and the euro, and no, wait a minute. No, it's the dollar currency index is blue, and euro, no, the S&P 500 red. So it's the same chart, but it's in this selection. So we are seeing, I do believe that we are going to see a correlation. Well, I don't know if that's going to happen, of course, but if the same situation arises that happened in 2016 that happens now, then we are likely to see a correlation between the dollar currency index and the S&P 500. And as you can see here, it says the dollar currency index range highs. So if we go to the dollar currency index, see, I got it right here. We go to the dollar currency index here, and we zoom out. We'll look at the weekly. So we're looking at this weekly range right here. And what happened was, we've obviously seen some very strong moves from the dollar currency index from that low, and we're reclaiming the range EQ. And I'm thinking that we might see a move up into these range highs up here. If we see a correlation between the S&P 500 and the dollar currency index like last time, I do suspect that we might see a move up into the 106 to 107 area for the dollar currency index, which of course means downside on EU. So on EU, and this could, if it's going to take 60 days, that's going to be around this time. Let's say that time. So we could assume that a couple of weekly candles up into that area kind of makes sense. Something like that, And if that happens, then I'm looking at EU, and I'm thinking that EU might potentially reach the area around 1.05 and 0.6. So basically this level here. Now you see that for this trade here, it has a TP, which is kind of like a long shot TP. This is more of a, I wouldn't say gamble, but if there for some reason the whole risk sentiment just disappears and gets totally destroyed, if the S&P 500 does not continue to rally and Bitcoin does not continue to rally, we might see a move back down to these areas where we have, if we look at the monthly, we have that low right here. And this level is actually confluent with the high time frame 0.618, and it's an untested level. So this breakout level is untested, which I think looks very interesting. So if these lows are not going to hold, I think the next level is down here. So we're looking at a very, very big move to the downside. but of course not very likely. But that's I'm going to be taking profits down into that level. Now, if this scenario holds true, that we're going to see a correlation between the dollar currency index and the S&P 500, and that correlation is then going to break, that means that the S&P 500 will enter a massive bull run again. We're going to continue the bull run, and we're probably going to stay in a bull run for several years, which of course means that if we go to Bitcoin, remember, this is a trade setup that we looked at on this channel in August, I believe. And this is what we're looking at. And then we're probably going to see that move to 160K. 160K does not look like a massive move anymore.
It doesn't
now
really.
Looks slightly likely. So that's the idea that I'm trading. I'm long Bitcoin while at the same time being short EURUSD, which it's an area that I didn't see myself being in. But I also have in that analysis, there's also, I've been now for the last 2 weeks, I've been reading up on tariffs. Okay, so Trump talked a lot about tariffs, and I thought, okay, I need to understand what are tariffs, how are they implemented, and how can it affect the economy?
Maybe you can give us a quick rundown, because it's like on my to-do list still as well to read a bit about it.
Yeah, so basically what Trump wants to do is he wants to put tariffs on China. He always says that, oh, tariffs on China, we're going to put tariffs on China, right? And what happens is, if you put a tariff on, let's say chocolate, okay? Let's say chocolate. You have someone, an importer in America, sells chocolate, and he imports a chocolate from China because it's much cheaper to buy chocolate from China. Now, that's a very bad example because they probably don't do chocolate, but let's use that's an example. So he buys the chocolate from China and sells it in America because it's cheaper for him to import from China than it is to buy from a local producer in the US. Now, if Trump goes ahead and says, okay, we're going to put a tariff on imports of chocolate from China, that means that the importer has to buy the chocolate from China, and he has to pay a tariff on the import. Okay. So it becomes more expensive for the seller in America to buy Chinese chocolate. So he will look at alternatives, and he's going to look at alternatives within America, because the idea is to make it more expensive to buy from China and less expensive to buy from within America.
So it's basically like an import tax.
Exactly. It's
what he did
basically
in
what it is.
2016 as well, I remember.
Exactly. It's kind of like a tax on what you import. So, but there's problems with this. What if there's no production of chocolate within America? You put a tariff on chocolate coming into America, but there's no production of chocolate in America. So they have to start production if it's going to be worth it. Otherwise, the ones paying the tariff is the customer, okay? Because the importer is just going to buy the chocolate, put the cost of the tariff on the price, which increases prices, which in turn increases inflation. Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword. You can, of course, put tariffs on things that has an alternative within America. Now, what that will do is it will increase production in America while also simultaneously lowering prices, because it increases competition between American manufacturers, and it will also lower prices because of that competition. So it might actually drive inflation down while also strengthening the US dollar. And that, I believe, is a recipe for keeping the US dollar strong while also having a risk on scenario.
Which is, I think, what he's aiming at mainly is, of course, not like chocolate or consumer goods. I think it's more in the direction of something like steel production, for example. You know, that he wants to, pardon me, because this type of production hasn't been very competitive when it comes to China. You saw a lot of imports of, for example, steel from China. And obviously, he wants to strengthen with that probably the US industry, which could work out, but many people are afraid of this because it's a bit a step into how the world worked before we had globalization. I believe before everything was interconnected.
I think we to implement these tariffs in a good way. So it's interesting. We talked about the Joe Rogan podcast with Trump. He talked about tariffs, and he's like, tariffs are a wonderful thing. It's the best thing ever. It's I'm gonna implement tariffs on everything. It's gonna solve the economy. It's gonna make America great again. Blah blah blah. All of that, right? And then Joe Rogan interviews Elon Musk, and Elon Musk like tariffs are dangerous. Like it's. I'm like, okay, so Elon Musk is probably going to be in the Trump administration, right? And Elon Musk is saying tariffs are dangerous because tariffs, if you have Tesla, for example, okay, Tesla makes cars, and they import like, why would you want to start manufacturing something in America that is better manufactured somewhere else, cheaper, because they're in a place where it's easier to get the raw goods and materials, and it's just better for that country to develop that thing. Then that should be developed in that country. It should not be developed within America because for a principle. Like it should be developed in the country where it has the natural resources to do so, where the people are naturally inclined to be better at those sort of things, right? So some tariffs, in the wrong place can be terrible for the economy. And I have a fear that maybe Donald Trump is just going to go crazy and use tariffs as a weapon, a trade wars weapon, without thinking about the real consequences.
That's the point of it, I think. Really, like to ensure, when there's something bad happening with China, things are cooling down even more on a diplomatic level, or not to mention, the tensions between Taiwan and China continue to escalate. Of course, then it's nice to be not dependent on certain goods that need to be imported from a region that's potentially unstable, or just not willing to export anymore. I think specifically when we talk about Elon Musk, he is probably thinking of something like, what is it called? I think rare earths or something, which you need for the production of those lithium ion batteries, for example, for Tesla cars, or our smartphones or whatever. Which, I mean, it's just, I haven't read really into this, so that's just on a very shallow level, my assumption of what is going on there.
And there's also a like it's we also live in a free economy that's based on what values we can bring to the economy as individuals, and what skills we have. And if, for example, if we have a country where the people in that country is very skillful at a specific thing because they've been doing it for 50 years or whatever, they have a huge industry of doing certain things, and they are very very skillful at that, then it makes no sense not to let them do certain things that they're very good at, because that's what a free market is all about. People with certain skills are supposed to do what they're good at. That's how you how you build a strong community and a strong a strong country. You let people do what they're good at doing, and not forcing other people to do it just because it needs to be happening domestically. So it's a very complicated discussion, basically, and
But I think the trade is interesting, that you mentioned. I mean, this is kind of based on this as well, no? Like seeing strongly rising markets, seeing a strong US dollar, which in itself, of course, is something you usually would not see. And I think if we want to take what happened in the election night, Tuesday night, as kind of a foreshadowing, because it could be a really very good and very profitable trade for you. So thank you for sharing that one with us. And Tuesday night we had that already, that scenario. We saw euro dollar dropping by 200 pips. And we saw Bitcoin going to new all-time highs. We saw obviously the S&P futures not trading, but I mean, we saw yesterday what happened there. No, we jumped to almost 6,000 in the S&P 500. One thing, and maybe that like goes into the direction, I think I've talked about this one here before as well, I want to share really quickly one more time, is this, Yeah, this election pattern, I've been talking about this for a bit as well over the last year. And basically, what I looked at here is what happened after the election day to the stock markets until the next election. So basically, you see what happened to the stock market after Barack Obama's second term, after Donald Trump's first term, we have to say now, and what happened to it after Joe Biden. So actually, what we saw here yesterday was kind of the last day for that. And what we saw there, and I think that suits also very well the narrative you have been sharing with us here, is we always had 1 to 1.3 years of really very good performing stock markets before things, got a little bit choppy for about 1 to 6 years or even 2 years roundabout. And then we saw the beginning of a new bull market 1 year prior to the next election. And I think this feeds very well into what you've been saying about, super booming stock markets potentially for the next years, you actually said, which I agree with, with, of course, volatile phases in between where we can see corrections of 10, 15, 20, maybe 25% even. I mean, that's normal nowadays. And what also feeds into this is we've seen I think it was just yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday, where we had the federal interest rate decision. And we saw another rate cut of 25 basis points. We saw Jerome Powell basically saying, hey, you cannot fire me. I'm independent from the government.
Yeah, that's weird.
So super weird, really. I think he's a bit referring to Jerry Gensler, I think is his name, the head of the SEC, where Trump said prior to the election already, I'm going to fire you, which, of course, made the cryptocurrency community in America very, very happy. And so we have a rate cuts. We have this natural markets that like to trend up the stock markets after in U.S. election. I'm talking about the day of the election, not January, when Trump is going to take over really responsibilities in the White House officially. And then we have our natural Bitcoin cycle where we just made this beautiful new all-time high. And where, and we've talked about this so much over the course of the last 2 years, where we are now slowly getting to this upper band of the green channel here, where the real bull market frenzy starts, and where we quickly could see prices of 160, maybe even $200,000. If there's not something, of course, that spoils the party. So I think in the next year, really, from today until end of October, beginning of November next year, things are going to heat up very quickly. And I've already, ironically, have been getting calls from friends and family that asked me yesterday, hey, should I buy Bitcoin now? I said, you guys, I've been talking about this with Jonathan for 2 years now. When we were all the way down at 20,000, 25, even at 16,000, we said, buy now, buy now, buy now. I made so many videos about this as well. And everybody declares you crazy. That, of course, is not in the scene, not looking at the financial markets in such a depth like we are here, or other people are obviously as well. And now they come calling. So I wonder, are we going to see maybe a correction now already because things are too hyped up already and we're going to see dropping down to 65 already? Or is it going to be it now? Because, I mean, the market structure has completely changed, right? In the past month, we've always been talking here about the series of lower highs and lower lows. So basically a bear market. We then said when we were in this area, seems like, when we go over this last lower high here, there's a good chance of market structure being changing. And the question, of course, now is going to be what's going to happen next. I was a bit surprised, I must say, that Bitcoin was able to defend this area of a new all-time high in a way it did up to now. So I would have assumed we would see an attack down on one of the last 2 days to this area of, let's say, 73,500 again. But it didn't happen so far. And this is still my preferred scenario, that we see a closing kind of around that area, which would be a nice long trade for me then, because you can have a pretty tight stop loss on that as well. But it seems a bit like the market is really in shock that this happened. We saw this also with the ETF inflows. I don't have a graphic prepared on this one, sorry, which had not only record inflows again, I believe, when we look at iShares, the spot ETF of BlackRock, but also a record trading volume. How's your take on that currently? What do you
Well,
think is going to happen next?
I think we're gonna see a huge move to the upside on Bitcoin. I think it's time to. I think this is the start of a major move to the upside. And I mean, if we're looking at if we can put on my chart, I will show you. If we look at the bigger picture here, I mean, we're about to hit 100K. We got 100K up here. I mean, 100K has been my target for a very long time. Since doing some more analysis and we're doing these streams together, I've been looking at the 160K. But I mean, I'm long here on Bitcoin since filling up my long-term position since we entered, this. Let me show you here. So I'm gonna do. This is on the log scale, and I think it works on the log scale as well here. But this has been my target for a very long time. If we look at the fibs here, I've been targeting this 100 area for a long time. Let me just, all right, here it is. So you can see here that we started accumulating Bitcoin here when it went into the long RL set, which is right here, and into the MVRE C-score buy zone here as well. And I remember saying 100K. I remember at the time saying that we never know what's going to happen. 100K is a probable target for this move, and of course, a lot of people said you're insane. That's crazy, 100K. But we're most likely going to 100K. I mean, at this time, when I had my full position, when I entered the rest of the position, that's a 340% move to the upside. That's huge. But now we're only talking about a 30% move to the upside on Bitcoin to 100K. Okay,
but I think it still feels like more, because it's such an important number, 100K.
Yeah, but
it's
for
a
me,
psychological thing.
but for me, the number doesn't mean anything. I mean, I'm looking at the technical thing, and I'm thinking, it's so close. Even to 160, it's just 100%. And thinking about that, it's like, for Bitcoin, that's nothing. When Bitcoin starts moving, I think this is the time to really pay attention. And you said, your family members are asking you Bitcoin, and I mean, I think we have to be worried because remember, there's a lot of things going on in the US now with Bitcoin. They're talking about actually, adding Bitcoin to the National Reserve. They're actually talking about it. Like it's an actual thing now.
Yeah.
Back when we were trading here in 2022, that was not even. We didn't even think about that. Like that was just a dream. And just like the spot ETF was a dream in 2017 when rumors started, that was just a dream. Now we have spot ETFs. In 2022, the dream was to have the US talking about adding it as a strategic reserve, and now they're actually talking about it. So I think we're gonna see a massive move to the upside, and I think if we put on this right here, we'll see that. Going back to the idea with the correlation between the dollar currency index and the S&P 500. Let me see if I can find that chart again. Yeah, so this one here. So the high on the dollar currency index happened about between 60 and 70 days after the election. But the real break in the dollar currency index, and like this is where they really start to deviate when you break like this area. That's about 150 days, and that's when the S&P 500 really started moving heavily to the upside. And 150 days, we're talking about around this area, and I think that is a quite likely scenario to touch that 120K region. So I think we are probably not going to see one move to 160, but I think we're going to see a rather rapid structure forming to 100.
Yeah, and what I could imagine actually is, and something like we see quite a rapid move, let's say to like something like 95, 98,000. And then we see a slump down again to something like 80,000 or maybe even 75,000. So the crazy volatility, that's going to shake out all those people out of the market that maybe are first-time investors now, that just bought ETS, that kind of have like the diamond nerves you get when you've been in this game for like 4 or 8 years already, and how bear markets work. How sometimes you can have this crazy moves to the upside or crazy moves to the downside. By the way, you remember when we were around 55,000 US dollars in one of our streams, not that long ago, I think it was like 2 months ago, when you were saying specifically, hey, the upside potential is bigger than the downside potential. Only if we fall, I think you said, below 40,000, that would kind of invalidate this trading idea. And the move we made now from 55 to 76,000 US dollars, if we just do it percentage-wise, this move again, we are talking about 2 months of performance here, then this would put us to 105,000 already. So it's not
crazy.
far away. And if you look at monthly performance of Bitcoin in the past, we've seen months where Bitcoin does like 24%, 30%, 45%, something like this.
This is where we're trading at that time. I remember taking this screenshot and putting it on
it's always
Twitter.
Good that you keep those screenshots.
Yeah. So I had this screenshot and I put it on Twitter, and because this was when your friends were selling, the German government were were selling. We had a stream there, and I said like, because people were really panicking and saying like, oh, this is the end, and I said, well, it's coming down and hitting the long reload zone. It's going to hit the 0.618. We got the I believe the 50 EMA on the weekly here. It looks just really, really bullish. Now, what happened if we go to the weekly, we zoom out? Well, what happened was right here is where that level is, and that is the 50 EMA on the weekly. We hit that level, and that was the actual low. I want to show you something else. Look at the signal here from the slingshot indicator prior to the break into new all-time highs, and the last TP for this one is 78,000. So that the slingshot indicator actually caught this move just beautifully. It's perfect.
Yeah, nice.
Very, very nice.
That almost happened already, like yesterday. Almost 77 we were, so like 1,000 for the last TP still left there. But of course, I mean, we before we started this live stream, we talked about and actually we did this also in past live stream about probably that we need a catalyst for a move like this to happen, or if it's supposed to happen on a more, let's say, natural kind of things, in a natural kind of way, it's going to probably take a longer time still. But now we had our catalyst. I said, well, who would have believed that Trump is going to be the catalyst that's going to drive us to new all-time highs? I think what is important now is, maybe I quickly change back here to my chart, if you allow, is to kind of keep a calm head. So the first thing is the upside potential as well. I totally agree with Jonathan there. I think we could very quickly see a move up to 80,000. 80,000 not far away. That's like a half-day move, as it seems sometimes. Or 85, or maybe even something like 95 or 98,000 US dollars. We're going to see a slump down then also again, which is going to shake out a lot of people again. If, like, the most probable trade for me still is if you really want to see it from a swing trading perspective, is to see if we are going to retest somewhere this level around 73 to 73,500, then have your limit long here maybe, and place a stop loss shortly after. There's a probability you get stopped out that, but the risk reward ratio from a swing trading perspective for something like this is very beneficial. One thing that I talked about last week in the live stream was as well that I said we had this nice crossover here in the bull market support bands again. You okay?
Yeah, I'm here.
I thought you fell down your chair. I knocked you off your chair.
No, I'm here.
All right, so we had this crossover of the bull market support bands here again. So bull market support bands is this 21 weeks. This is a daily chart, but the averages are here based on weekly prices. The red line, 21 weeks exponential moving average. The yellow line here, 20 weeks simple moving average. And what we see in when Bitcoin starts trending, and this is also true for bear market, is that whenever we see crosses of the exponential moving average, the red line, over the yellow line, this usually indicates that a large move is inbound. We saw this the last time here, basically almost 1 year ago in November of 2023, around the 11th November. And I mean, what happened then, and this just happened within basically 4 months, is like history. We went all the way up from 37,000 to what was a new all-time high then at 73,000 US dollars. And we see the same now here again, which of course doesn't mean that, history always has to repeat itself. But for me, it's another brick of the whole puzzle. The logarithmic regression, the 4-year cycle, the lowering of interest rates in the USA, what Jonathan just told us about his opinion, what's going to happen to the stock markets, the presidential election pattern I've been talking about. So we could very easily see that something like this again. And if we just see a move like this, which was 95%, well, voila, then we are already at around 150,000 US dollars. This is pretty close already to the target. You said we could go all the way to 160,000 US dollars rather quickly. And so it's going to be exciting. It's going to be really, really exciting. I'm like over the moon. And because, I've been, same as you, we've been talking about this for such a long time. It's finally happening. And of course, it's very satisfying when you see your own prediction becoming slowly reality. So let's hope the market is not going to prove us wrong. That's always a possibility, or we have some kind of black swan event. But black swan events are not things you should trade on. That's why they are called black swans, of course. Tips, tricks, and backflips with a comment here. Just leg your way in and stay in the game longer. Satisfy your FOMO. Absolutely agree with you. The way, if you don't want to swing trade like this, if you really want to participate from moves like this long time, first of all, don't trade futures, with futures, perpetual futures, or even worse, CFDs. Some brokers are offering, you always have overnight cost, which are okay usually at perpetual futures, but over time they are going to eat you up, even if you just pay something like 0.05% every 4 or 8 hours. So you want to do this with spot positions and then just DCA your way in. And it could be, I think that's a very plausible solution Tips, Tricks, and Backflips is proposing here. If you're afraid of missing the train now, buy a little bit now. If it goes further down, add to your position, or just buy a little bit every week, every month, whenever you have a bit of spare money. Don't like FOMO all the way in now. That's like the worst you can do, because everybody who has been doing this, and I have been doing this, luckily not with Bitcoin, but with other assets in the past, that usually always was a bad trade. Because when the FOMO kicks in, this is usually when kind of the price reaches at least a local high, and then you'll see price decline a bit again, and then you'll have a severe case of FUD and do the next stupid thing, meaning you're going to sell on the lowest point, then on the lowest local low again. Right. Yeah. Anything else you want to share, or shall we slowly have this show coming to an end?
I want to show you something. If you can pull up my chart here. Let's see if
Jonathan is on fire today with trading ideas. Nice.
Okay, that's too. Find an old screenshot, an old trade idea I had on Bitcoin. It's always interesting to go back and look at the previous Bitcoin ideas. So this idea was posted in 2021.
Wow.
And this was when Bitcoin was trading at, I think perhaps this was the prior to the
prior to the second high, probably. Oh, no, the second high already.
I think this was the. I think this was the first high, and then you had this low, and then a second high, and then I think we made our way all the way down here, right?
Yeah, I think we had the low like in November 2022, I believe, when after FTX collapsed.
Let's see, that's interesting. So we go to the weekly 20.
Well, we went over 60K, 69K or something, I think was the
Yeah,
all-time
so
high there
this
in
is
November.
actually yeah, wow. We went because I remember I posted that and I said basically the trend I was looking at um was this, I believe, or no, probably this,
Thank you, Sylvia.
something like, yeah, I looked at this and then I made a chart that looked like this with a 100K target. It's interesting how it can be so wrong on a trade idea, but so right in the, in the direct. I mean the end
Yeah.
target, the end goal, because we all knew that, okay, we're gonna go higher sometimes in the future, and this is why. When it comes to long term, you have to have such a different mentality, a more of a investor mindset where you're really buying something and have a mental stop loss and really think long term, like,
Mhm.
and don't look too much at the local price action. If you have a target in mind and you have a time horizon in mind, try not to look too much on the local price action that's happening, but really make sure that you're zoomed out and look at the bigger picture. And I think that's more important now than ever,
Mhm.
looking
Yeah, that's
at
why I
looking
like
at
this
Bitcoin.
this logarithmic regression chart so much,
Yeah.
because it really every time I get into the mindset of, oh my god, such crazy moves we are seeing here right now, then I just bring this chart on and think like, well, it's not really. I mean, even look at what we saw now the last days in the grand scheme of things. That's not a lot of movement we've seen there. So there's plenty of price action still to be seen. And
Yeah.
this is really, really important. I mean, it's like what I do primarily anyway. I'm a long-term investor with like 85 to 90% of my assets. So yeah, use the chart, and again, you can find this indicator logarithmic aggression for aggression. It's a logarithmic aggression, logarithmic regression, of course, on TradingView. So just search for an indicator. I put it like online there for everybody to use it totally for free. And every time you get like FOMO or FUD, use this one. And maybe like one last comment, if you allow me from my side. I want to go quickly back to your chart that you have it still on there, but you were showing
Now
just
I'm
now.
I'm gold now, but let's go to Bitcoin.
That's okay. But I also believe somehow last time this like real bull market was a bit stolen from us with
Yeah.
obviously um, we went far too low because of FTX, and before that we didn't go as high as we could because it turns out there were a lot of IOUs being traded on not real Bitcoin positions, not real spot Bitcoin positions changing hands. And I really, really hope this is not what is happening again at the moment, for example, with the ETFs. And also, of course, COVID is in this equation for the last cycle as well. I mean, we went down. It was only short, but we went down to 3,500 before the bull run there. So under normal circumstances, I actually think we could have seen 100K during the last bull run. And if that is really, this assumption is true, and the nice thing is we can find out if it's true. And how can
Yeah.
we find this out this time? If we follow, for example, something like the stock to flow model, and we can talk about this maybe next time. I don't want to steal too much of your time here today as well, which said like last time we should have seen 100K. And the interesting thing is now, according to this model, we should see 500K
Wow.
during this bull cycle. So should we see this really, well, then we can be sure, well, actually we were underperforming the so-called model last time. Please don't misunderstand me, I'm not propagating here we're going to see prices of 500K. I think also somewhere between 150, 250,000 probably the peak is going to be next year, and when we are going to have to argue into the different direction again, trying to convince everybody to get out, including ourselves probably.
Yeah.
And again, nobody's going to believe us, and yeah, then the cycle's going to start new again. So we might have to save our screenshots here today again, and then come back in latest 4 years or 2 years
Yeah.
again,
I'm
or next year is a
I'm
better
I'm I'm
fact.
looking I'm kind of I'm looking forward to start taking profits on Bitcoin and actually, for the first time, opening a possible short position, because I've
Yeah.
never done that before. And at the tops, I've never, had a bigger position short on Bitcoin. But I'm quite confident that this time around, I'm potentially going to be able to see the higher time frames top being formed, and that's going to be interesting to see.
It will now.
Try to start building short positions at the top, and see what the sentiment is at that point, because the goal is at that time is to build shorts when everyone's just loving the bull market, when everyone's buying Bitcoin, when every celebrity is supporting Bitcoin, when it's all about Bitcoin all over the place. That's
a good
when I'm going to
point.
start thinking.
We have not seen celebrities entering the game yet. Like last time, Matt Damon doing the Crypto.com commercials,
Yeah, I
Paris
mean,
Hilton, and
we do have celebrities in more isolated environments in crypto, with meme coins and things like
yeah,
that.
okay.
But I want to see Bitcoin on, like, I want to see everyone talking about Bitcoin. I want to see Bitcoin, in a whole different way that we've never seen it before. And I want, like, something completely different, because last, in 2018 or 17, there, when the top was when celebrities started endorsing Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I remember Katy Perry famously painted her nails in different altcoins. That was kind of like the top. But now that wouldn't really make a difference. I think what would make a difference, though, is like if there's something even bigger, something even bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
By the way,
that's
one last thing I wanted to share here with. I think it's more for my audience, maybe that has been with me for a longer time. You guys might remember that I think it was in the beginning of 2024. I did a video on a project called Grass, where you could like give them a little bit of your not used internet bandwidth, and you would like mine, so to say, virtual tokens for that. And they recently did an ICO, so they've now reached the stage where they are live. And if you have been participating in this, you got an airdrop. Like I've been having this running in the background, like on and off for almost the past 10 months now, and so I got around 200 tokens of airdrop from this project. If you also participate in this, you might want to remember to claim your airdrop there, because this token has been performing quite nice. It's trading right now here at almost $3.40. So for the around 200 tokens I got from this, it's like $680, basically, that I got for free from an airdrop. Remember to claim this one. I just thought about this, that I wanted to mention this on this live stream, because it's otherwise, basically free money you are not claiming, and somebody else is going to claim it, or nobody. Alrighty, good. Thank you again for your time, Jonathan. I think that was a nice live stream. Let's see where we are next week. Maybe we're going to cry again because we're trading at 65,000 again. Who knows? So those. Thanks everybody for taking your time and watching this live stream. Remember to leave us a like and subscribe to the channel. Also make sure to subscribe to Jonathan's channel. A lot of powerful and valuable information there as well. And we are going to see you latest again next week. So take care, everybody. Have a good weekend ahead, and